this is here, and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another video, reading a couple chapters in Hermitcraft Genesis. Well, you can tell how far we went, but yeah. This is either the second to last video or the last video, I don't know. It just depends how far we get, and all that fun stuff, but yeah, let's get right into it. If you haven't read the other parts, be sure you do so. Good spoilers, and yes, there are captions available if you are interested in following along. Or if you just want to listen while you game, that's fine too. Chapter 17. Brian was pushed through a doorway into a large, brightly lit room. There were machine parts scattered everywhere, on the floor, on the countertops, and even some hanging from open drawers. In the center of the room was a tall cylindrical machine, with a lone wooden chair inside. Kate gasped in horror, causing Brian to look over his shoulder. The girl was shaking her head, trying to push back against her father, who had a firm grip on her shoulders. "What is that?" Summer sniffed, trying to keep pace with Sharp, who was briskly shoving her forward. Her cheeks were soaked with tears, her nose running. Brian could see fear in those bright blue eyes. There had to be a way to stop this, to get out of here. Ideally, before someone got hurt. "It's a little machine that I've created," Rhinestone said proudly, gesturing to the machine. "After I've given a subject an injection, I put them through some simple tests. It doesn't hurt that much." "It's horrible," Kate grimaced, glaring daggers at the woman. "As I was saying to my colleagues here before our interruption," Dr. Rhinestone continued, ignoring the girl's scowl, walking around the machine, "we've come to a point where most of our subjects are able to withstand the dose of lapis dust that we provide, which means they have a higher concentration of hybrid blood. This then allows an increased tolerance to pain, faster healing factor, incredible strength. Soon it should be safe enough to test on a much larger array of volunteers." "Mean prisoners," Kate spat, her eyes narrowing. "You're torturing these innocent people, hoping you can create something that you can control. Guess what? You can't!" "Who says I can't?" Dr. Rhinestone raised an eyebrow, glancing over at the girl. "Forgive my daughter, she's still going through some hormonal changes," he said casually. "She's 13. "You almost killed my mother," Kate growled at her father. "I wanted to ensure she could never get sick again," Kimberly insisted. "Hybrid blood doesn't work like that," Kate snapped. "These friends of yours have infected some YouTubers, and they get sick. You can't create immunity." "What if I could?" Her father's voice softened. "What if we could cure every sickness and disease? What if we could prevent someone from dying permanently? Wouldn't you want to live forever?" "No!" Kate tried to push her father away with a shoulder, but he held her fast. Brian could see anger flare in her eyes as Kimberly pushed her forward. "Take her to the control panel so she can watch," Dr. Rhinestone said calmly. "Take the boy to the cage where we have the survivors recover." "What about the other girl?" Sharp raised an eyebrow as Richard pushed Brian toward a cell he hadn't seen before. There were iron bars along with an iron door. Brian felt a lump in his throat as his eyes widened, seeing two unconscious figures on the dusty cold ground. "Boys." "Throw her into the machine," Rhinestone said. "No! Leave her alone!" Kate screamed. My hand shook then. Brian could hear the man grunt in pain, but he was able to keep the girl from pulling from his grasp. "Summer! Help!" Summer cried as Brian turned to look over his shoulder. Richard shoved him into the cell. Brian fell onto his shoulder in pain, as pain shot through his arm as he gasped. Pain. Ugh. He gasped. Pain. Yeah, whatever. He looked up, seeing Sharp drag Summer into the cylindrical machine, shoving her into the wooden chair and clasped her metal restraints on her wrists. "Let her go!" Kane insisted, straining toward the machine as fear crossed her expression, along with the anger that was already there. Brian got to his feet, looking down at his untied hands for a moment, before glancing over at the still bodies of the boys with him in the cell. Henry and Charlie, pale, lines of blue stretching up their necks and down their arms, just like Lara and Kimberly had been when they found her. "I'm afraid there isn't much I can do, Caitlin," her father said solemnly. "It's for the best." "How?" Kate stopped, struggling, turning her head back to her father. "How can this be good for anyone? How many people have to die in order for you to get what you want? How many more have to suffer before you're satisfied?" "I want to keep you safe," the man said gently. Brian approached the bars. "I want to give you a world where there is nothing to be afraid of anymore." "I'm not afraid." Kate stared at her father. "I'm not afraid of you, or Dr. Renstone, or the Jargons. I'm not afraid of what you'll do to me. I'm afraid what this might mean for the universe if you succeed. Not if. When," her father pressed, as Richard joined Kimberly and Kate by the control panel. Sharp slammed the machine door, muffling Summer's cries for help. "Imagine a world where you can be whatever you want. Do whatever you want without someone telling you can't. You have everything they have. There will be no division." "Do you think that's going to happen?" Kate asked him, skeptically, looking away from him and toward the machine. "Of course it will," Kimberly replied. "When the new humanity arises, we will be able to destroy the Dubers and finally be free. Then we can be happy. You, your mother, and I." "And there lies the problem," Kate sighed, lifting her gaze to look at Brian helplessly. Brian pressed against the bars, looking around the room, trying to find anything that might give him a chance. He couldn't sit here and let these men bully him and his friends like that. Not without some sort of resistance. But what could he do? He was nothing like his two best friends, and Joel certainly wasn't here to save his bacon this time. They were on their own. "Is everything ready, Richard?" Dr. Rhinestone asked. Brian looked up to see the woman and Andrew were standing on a podium, watching Summer struggle helplessly in the machine. Her muffled cries had quieted, but Brian could see her trying to free herself from the restraints. But even if she was able to pull herself free, what was stopping Sharp from blocking the door so she couldn't escape? "Brian," Kate whispered, pulling his attention away from Summer. Brian looked over at her, frowning. When he met Kate, his gaze. Excuse me. When their eyes met. There we go, when their eyes met. She adjusted her eyes to the stop behind him and rose an eyebrow. Brian paused, watching her eye movements a couple of times before he looked over his shoulder to the cobblestone floor. Wait a minute. His eyes widened as he went over onto his hands and knees. The cylindrical machine was made of glass, wasn't it? If he was able to find a sharp enough rock and throw it hard enough, maybe he could shatter it. It was worth a try as he hunted on the floor for anything loose or sharp that he could use. He found several pebbles on the floor as he picked them up, pocketing them. He couldn't risk Sharp or Kimberly getting suspicious of what he was doing. He got to his feet, running back to the bars of cell as he calculated the distance between the cage and, as Rhinestone called it, and the cylinder. Brian quietly pulled out one of the pebbles, assessing the distance one more time before throwing the rock in just the perfect angle as it connected to the glass, causing a small dent. He could see Sharp narrowing his eyes at him. A warning. Brian smiled innocently as he pulled out another pebble, careful not to have it in view of the man. He threw it at the same spot as the glass cracked. "What are you doing?" Dr. Rainstone asked. Brian looked up, seeing the woman watching him. "There was some trash in here. I thought it'd be good to throw it out," Brian said quickly, clutching another pebble in hand. "Would this be it?" "Leave it be. We'll clean it up later," Rainstone replied, narrowing her eyes before she looked at Sharp. "You have my permission to deal with that boy if he continues to be a problem." "Me? A problem? Why would I be a problem?" Brian asked. He met the woman's rocky, hard gaze as she frowned. "Start the machine," the woman said curtly, the first to look away. "No!" Kate screamed, lunging forward as Richard reached for a button. Her father pulled her back just as Brian hurled his third stone. The pebble smacked hard against the glass, just shy of the crack he made. But it had made the surface weak. He smiled. "If you could do this after all!" "Put the stone down." Sharp's growl. Sharp growled as he began walking forward. Brian had pulled out his fourth and last pebble he'd gathered as he looked down at it and then back at the man. "Let Summer go, and I will," Brian said defiantly. The man sneered. He could hear Summer's muffled screams. Richard and Kimberly ignored the teen as they watched the glass cylinder. Brian watched Sharp approach, waiting for the last possible moment before throwing the pebble. "That's it! You're gonna get it!" The man roared, breaking out into a run as the glass smashed behind him, creating a big hole as dark blue fog started to flow out of the machine and up toward the podium where Rhinestone and Andrew were standing. Brian took a wary step back as Sharp yanked the iron door off its hinges, ready to bolt. But before he could, he heard another smash of glass as a figure appeared behind Sharp, grabbing him and throwing him backward. Brian's eyes widened. He saw the figure standing in front of the cell in disbelief. "Stampy?" Chapter 18. It's been a while, hasn't it? Stampy stepped into the room, the ginger feline towering over him as he offered a paw for the boy to take. "I'm not dreaming." Brian swallowed. "No, I'm afraid not," Stampy replied. Brian could see more figures appearing from behind. Someone was pulling Summer out of the machine, while Kate sprung to her feet, now free of her bonds as a man with bright blue hair and matching blue eyes stood beside her. Kate's father was lying at their feet, unconscious, as Brian blinked. "Doc sent a team out to hunt down bases and destroy anything we can find, and capture prisoners." "Doc?" Brian frowned. Stampy lowered his paw. "One of the hermits," Stampy stated, kneeling beside the two unconscious boys. "Friends of yours?" "They went to school," Brian gulped. "They're the only ones who were tested that survived." Sad looked past the cat's expression as he nodded his head solemnly. "We better get them out of here and see what we can do for them." "Kate's working on a way to revert what Rhinestone did to them," Brian reported as the cat rose to his feet. "That's good," Stampy nodded, looking over to the chaos outside. "Seems like Dan and Scott have taken care of most of them." "Dan, as in Dan TDM?" Brian's eyes grew wide. "The one and only," the cat smiled. "I'm sure Sam or Liam must have told you what he's been up to lately." "Yeah, but I never expected you'd join him," Brian insisted. The cat laughed. "It was a bit last minute, I'll be honest," the cat admitted. "Rose took Squishy, the helpers, and me to a safe house that only she knew about. We could stay there for as long as we wanted. but I couldn't stay. I knew those men wouldn't stop until they found me. They would do whatever it took, so I decided to do what I could to help. I heard about Doc's plan, and I was all in. It's the least I could do for everything the hermits have done to help me. Brian shook his head. I don't think anyone is going to believe me. The cat chuckled as another gasp interrupted them. Stampy? What are you doing here? Kate stood by the doorway of the cell, her gray eyes wide with surprise. It's a long story, the cat shrugged. I couldn't just sit by and watch as the defectors destroyed everything and everyone I cared about. Kate put her hand to her mouth, hiding a smile. I knew it. She bolted forward and tackled a feline into a hug. I missed you too. Stampy returned her embrace before pulling away. Is everything settled? Andrew and Rhinestone were infected with lapis dust, Kate said, her smile fading. They only lasted a few minutes. Richard's been apprehended along with my father. And Sharp? Brian asked. The three of them looked to where the man had been minutes before. He was gone. Maybe he's in custody too. Kate peeped. I didn't see him when I came in to check on you. Stampy sighed. No thing is ever that simple. No, Brian agreed. Someone else approached the cell. Everyone okay in there? The young man asked. We need to get the kids upstairs to Hermit Fortress. We have supplies there that can help. Kate gestured to the unconscious boys. Is Summer okay? She's lucky that none of that fog reached her. The man smiled. Kate returned the smile, relief on her face. But she should definitely get some rest after that ordeal. I think we all do, honestly, Brian admitted, rubbing his sore shoulder gingerly. Liam and the others are probably waiting for us to get back. Should get going, then, Stampy insisted, reaching down to lift Henry from the ground. Kate went down to get Charlie. You're not coming with us? Kate looked up at him. Stampy shook his head. I'm needed elsewhere, unfortunately. It's probably best if Sam and Liam didn't know what I was up to. But, Brian protested. Stampy looked at him sadly. It's for their own safety. They don't know. If any of the defectors to capture them or me, the less they know, the better. Brian's shoulders slumped. It does make sense. I was told Connor wanted to use me as Carnivore. Sorry, wrong person. I was told that Carnivore wanted to use me as bait so that Sam or Liam could reveal where you were. Stampy nodded. Sorry to put such a burden on your shoulders. I'm sorry that happened to you. I hope someday things will get better. But sometimes they have to get worse before we do see change. You'll be careful? Kate asked hopefully. Stampy smiled. I've got plenty of backup. I'll be more than careful. We'll take you as far as the elevator, the YouTuber by the cell door replied. Then you're on your own. Thank you, Scott, Kate said with a grateful nod. Thank you for coming, for helping, for everything, Scott smiled. All of the day's work. Saving the world, one mission at a time. Come on, let's get you 5 home. Brian didn't argue as he stepped out of the cell into the once more. He spotted Summer resting on her side, sound asleep. He went over to her and tapped her on the shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open as she spotted him and smiled. Ready to go? He asked. Yeah, Summer nodded, sitting up. You saved me back there. Thank you. It was Kate's idea. Brian blushed. I keep forgetting Liam's lesson about using what's around you. He must have hammered it home on her recently. Summer smiled, getting to her feet. Brian did the same, offering to guide her, but she shook her head. He didn't argue. He'd keep his promise. He kept his promise. That was all that mattered. The kids were safe. Yes, there were losses, but Rhinestone had paid for it tenfold by being infected by her own medicine. He smiled at the thought. They somehow managed to stop 2 of the cruelest people in the universe. You could see one of Dan's teammates smashing a shelf of vials on the floor as he beamed. They were getting closer to that victory after all. Chapter 19. We might actually be there if I do the epilogue after 2. I think I will. Brian stood in the elevator as they ascended. Summer and Kate stood on either side of him, while Henry and Charlie were lying, still unconscious, at their feet. Brian could feel the pull of the elevator as the flying machine worked to drag the machine up, block by block. So what exactly are we going to tell everyone? Kate asked, staring up at the door. As if it was something that was about to jump at them. We'll tell them what happened, Brian said with a shrug. Can't tell them everything. Why not? Summer asked. Some friends came to our rescue. No harm in that. Yeah, Kate nodded. No harm in that. It's just, something that someone doesn't want us to share. Then don't share it, Summer said simply, looking at the two of them curiously. You look conflicted. It's not easy keeping a secret, Brian admitted. I just don't want people to ask who was there. Does it matter that much? I don't know. You have more experience than me, Summer shrugged. We could tell Clara, Kate offered. But that's it. Brian nodded. I'd rather have an adult know. You know you can always talk to me if you need to. Kate smiled meekly. I won't bite. Brian laughed. It's not that. It's just they're my best friends. We share everything together. We did everything together for as long as I can remember before the Jameses disappeared for a bit. Kate nodded. They had to keep a pretty big secret from you, right? Yeah, Brian replied. But there was a good reason to. And there's a good reason for keeping Stampy out of this, Kate said simply, looking over at Summer warily. I don't know who you're talking about, Summer shrugged, with a smirk before miming a zipper over her lips. Besides, sooner or later, people are going to figure it out, Kate insisted. It won't be forever, just until we can round up all those defectors and squash the stupid rumors. I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen, Brian admitted. Sharp is still running around somewhere, and even if Dan's team doesn't get him, he's a threat. We'll get him, Kate snapped. If he tries to go after one of our friends, I'll make sure he regrets it. Brian nodded. Hopefully I can help with that. Me too, Summer grinned. Kate giggled as the elevator doors opened, revealing the main hallway. It was mostly empty now, but far from quiet, as Brian poked his head through the door before stepping through. We need a little help here if anyone can lend a hand. Brian! Liam's muffled voice came somewhere around the kitchen, and they heard footsteps. Sam, Liam, and Eliza rounded the corner as Clara peeked her head around the meeting area entranceway. What happened here? You all look exhausted, Clara frowned, stepping into the room. Henry and Charlie are infected with the same thing Kate's mom has, Brian said quickly. They need medical attention. I'll get right on that, Clara nodded, and she picked up one of the boys. Kate scooped up the other, following the woman toward the sleepover room. What happened? Eliza pressed, stepping in front of Brian excitedly. Was anyone hurt? Brian shook his head as Summer cleared her throat. It's a long story, but we're both pretty tired. You hungry? We can get you something, Liam offered. It's almost dinner time anyway. Summer looked over at Brian, sighed. Sure, we can do that. But then we can tell you everything. Sounds great. Liam whirled around and disappeared into the kitchen again, and Sam chuckled. Glad to see you back in one piece, Sam said simply. Just glad the kids are safe, Brian stated. Each of them will make excellent protectors someday. You think so? Summer asked it. Looked at him, surprised. Excuse me. Yeah, Brian nodded. Kate proved herself well today, with her quick thinking. Sam smiled. We're going to need all the help we can get. Now, come on. There are couches with your name on them. Brian laughed, following his friends into the meeting area and taking a seat. Summer took a seat beside him, letting out a sigh as she leaned back against the cushions. Zayas, Isaac, and Caleb occupied other seats in the room. So how are the hermits faring? Doing much better, Sam replied, taking a seat across from him, folding his hands on his lap. You may have woken up screaming from nightmares a couple of times, though, but that's not unusual. I wish it wasn't, Brian frowned. I hear nightmares are pretty bad. Yeah, Sam lowered his eyes to his lap. I'm not sure who has worse, Scar or Ian, but they both haven't fully been able to get some sleep back. I can only do so much with one headband right now. You're using the headband to help? Brian raised an eyebrow. Julius is, as he knows the tech the best out of all of us. Sam shrugged. He's able to keep them calm, but he can't help both of them at the same time, so he has to alternate. At least someone's trying. Summer said cheerfully. We are, Sam agreed. I can't imagine what an experience like that would be like. Brian nodded. Before he could add anything, Liam appeared in the kitchen, carrying 2 bowls of suspicious stew. Saturation helped build some strength back. Thanks, Summer beamed, taking a bowl from him. Brian did the same as Liam sat down next to his brother. Brian put the bowl to his lips and began to sip its contents slowly. It took a few moments during doing this before lowering the bowl. So, what happened, huh? Brian said casually, straightening. It's kind of wild, if you can believe it. Summer chuckled. We were looking for Henry and Charlie when we found Mr. A and RJ talking in one of their conference rooms. They were frustrated about how the hermits and you lot kept foiling their plans. Mostly RJ, though. We learned that they had a large storage of blood that they saved from Kate and others. It couldn't be fun. Sam shook his head. Kate's dad was there, too. Summer's face crunched up. He was cold. I can't believe a father would do that to his daughter. He was only trying to protect her, Brian pointed out. Sam and Liam glanced at each other before looking back. It was a lot like her dad. Yeah, but I bet he didn't intentionally infect his wife, Summer stated. Sam and Liam both flinched. The girl continued. This guy named Sharp dragged me to the cylindrical machine where they tested Kate and the boys. They were going to do it when Brian started throwing pebbles at the glass. She looked over at Brian and grinned. He saved my life. He shattered the glass, and the fog wafted up to where Winston and Mr. A were standing. The James brothers beamed in Brian's direction as he felt heat on his cheeks. Kate reminded me about using what was available. Dell, you did something amazing. Summer boasted happily. And then Dan showed up with his team and came to our rescue. Apparently Doc sent them to hunt down bases in this world. So that's what they've been doing. Wow. Liam's eyes widened. He looking. I don't need the he there. I don't need that pronoun there. Looking over at his brother. I wonder if Impulse knew about this. Probably does, Sam smirked. Dad did say something big was coming, if I remember correctly. That he did, Liam nodded with a smile. I'm glad you're both okay, at least. That everyone got out safe. Yeah, Brian nodded. Andrew and Dr. Renstone aren't individuals to worry about now, at least. They didn't survive the dose of lapis dust, or whatever she called it. Huh, Sam said simply. Kate's dad and Richard have been apprehended. Summer's eyes shone. That Sharp guy is still out there, though. Well, whoever he is, we'll deal with it. Liam shrugged. Not everything is so neat and tidy. Brian smiled, looking down at his feet. I should probably plan on heading out to help keep an eye on Stacy and Lizzie, so Carl has one less thing to worry about. How soon? Liam frowned. As soon as the boys are up for travel, I guess. Brian shrugged. The girls and Tony need someone there to keep an eye on them. Yeah, of course, Sam consented. But his expression was sad. I wish you could stay. Brian smiled sadly. So defectors out there, somewhere, I can't trust that they'll be safe. Even with the wolves. They attacked us once, and they can do it again. If you need any help, Liam offered. I know. Brian lifted a hand to stop him. I'll let you know if I need anything. But until then, we can at least enjoy what time we do have. Right? Yeah. Sam agreed. Brian looked up at the sound of footsteps as Claire and Kate walked into the room. Kate gave Brian a double thumbs up. Claire wore a grim expression on her face as she took in the other two. "I'll see if I can't let Carl know of what you've done," Claire said calmly, having overheard some of the conversation. "You've been a huge help. I hope you know that." "I do," Brian stated matter-of-factly, searching the woman's eyes for any sign of understanding. There was none, but that didn't mean anything. He knew he could trust Kate to make the best decision for keeping Stampy's whereabouts secret, and soon he and Summer would be back with the other students, safe and sound, probably in a safe house. That was at least better than not knowing when the next attack might be. Epilogue. Grian. Grian leaned against the strong, fortified wall of Hermit Fortress. He looked up at the bright blue sky, feeling the breeze brush against his face, rifling through his hair. Yeah, that is the wrong way to spell it. It had been a week since the base had been ambushed and the hermits taken to Dr. Rainstone's lair. A week since he saw RJ, or Richard Jargon, for the first time in many months. A week since the men had tortured him in front of one of his friends, trying to get him to talk. A week since the horrible images filled his mind. They felt just as real now as they did a week ago. Someone sighed contentedly beside him. If only this could stay like this forever. "I know," Grian nodded, looking over to see his best friend, Scar, sitting beside him. His wheelchair leaned against the wall as the two of them sat on picnic blankets. "It's been too long since we've had a chance for some peace and quiet." Scar rested his head against the wall and closed his eyes. "You ever wonder what it'd be like when all of this is over?" "Sometimes." Grian stared back up at the sky. "It's been so long now that we've had the protectors keeping tabs on us, making sure we don't get separated. We're never really alone." "Sorry about that," Caleb said sheepishly nearby. He yelped as Liam punched him in the shoulder gently. "We wouldn't be here without people like you." Grian turned to face his friends. "It's the right thing to do," Liam smiled. His bright, piercing blue eyes shone in the sunlight. "So, what will you do when this is over?" Scar asked, his eyes still closed as he smirked. "Probably hang out with my brother and friends." Liam shrugged. "I don't get enough time with them, but makes sense." "At least Sam isn't far," Grian noted. "No, he's not," Liam replied. "It's more than some can say." "We should probably start getting back inside," Caleb said warily, looking over his shoulder toward the forest of trees in the distance. "I don't want to be caught out here if anyone is watching." "They're always watching," Grian sighed, getting to his feet as he turned to Scar. "Ready, buddy?" "Do we have to?" Scar frowned, opening his eyes as he looked up at his friend. "It's not safe to stay out here. You and I both know that," Grian insisted. Scar sighed and nodded, sitting upright. Grian bent down, lifting him off the ground before helping him into his wheelchair. Scar strapped himself in and looked longingly out into the trees beyond. "Someday." "Yeah," Grian nodded, looking over at the two protectors, the four of them starting to head back. As much as Grian wanted to join Scar and spend hours outdoors having fun, the world out there was not a safe place, especially not for those who were friends with Stampy. He looked over at Scar sadly as his friend pressed ahead, steering his wheelchair to the front door. Impulsive Scar knew far more about the world Richard had wanted to get to than he had. At least the man was behind bars, but that didn't mean he was safe. No one was ever truly safe. "You okay?" Liam asked, walking beside the hermit. Grian was snapped back to reality in an instant. "I'm good," Grian said quickly, looking straight ahead before looking over at Liam. "It's just sad we couldn't be out longer." It was hard enough getting Clara to allow this. Liam shook his head. I want you guys to be free as much as you do, but your safety is also important too. I get that. Believe me, I do, Green said softly. There's only so much the gods can do. Rob might still be out there somewhere. And there's this sharp guy too, Liam. Might be out for blood. I won't let anything happen to you, if I can help it, Liam promised. Green smiled. You've already told me that. I'll keep telling you, as many times as it takes, Liam said, matter-of-factly. I've got your back. What the defectors are doing is wrong. They need to be stopped, and we'll find a way to stop them. Green nodded as he arrived at the door, glancing back toward the wall that separated them from the forest beyond. He knew it was out there, but he also had no idea. Instead, their enemies were keeping watch, keeping them contained, right where they could pick them off when they needed them. Green shuddered, trying to push the thought out of his mind. He had no issue doing that last week. Green's attention was redirected when he spotted a glint of light just beyond the tree line. He blinked. Was that a trickle of light? Spyglass? Another shudder ran through its spine. He knew they were being watched. There would be no peace. Not until they were all dead, or their enemies were stopped. Permanently. Hey, Liam put a hand on the hermit's shoulder. Let's get inside, shall we? Yeah, Green relented, dipping into the fortress, the one place where he should feel safe. But he didn't have to look far to know that not even this base was safe. Nowhere was safe for them, not so long as there were people out there who could simply walk in from the back door, come inside any time to get what they wanted. Well, he couldn't let that happen. Even if he died trying, he would fight to keep his friends, his family alive. Fight to survive, because at the end of the day, that was what it was all about. Being there for your friends and surviving. Maybe one day, thrive. He hoped that day would come soon. That is the end of Hermitcraft Genesis. Next week, we'll be starting off in the next one. The temporary title is Hermitcraft Freedom, and I might stick with that, but yeah. Yeah, I am brainstorming, because, what's going to happen after Hermitcraft Freedom? Because, I am technically past the climax. We're getting to the resolution part. Just get into the calmer, relaxing part. It's just everything's gotta go down, and gotta see people getting, things going well. And then, of course, the next thing that happens. But, at the end of the day, time will only tell. And Impulse just went live, so I'm going to call it that, and see you later.